The silent watchers, the Kalrathi Empire, had ruled the Orion Arm for 12,000 years. Their crystalline ships moved through space like predators, through an ocean of stars, collecting resources from lesser worlds and enforcing their version of order across 100 systems. They had subdued the Melody with their songs of peace, crushed the warrior Bracken in 3 days, and absorbed the technologically gifted Zephans into their collective. They believed themselves masters of all they surveyed. Earth was discovered by accident. A routine scouting vessel, the Eternal Vigil, detected radio signals while passing through what they considered an empty region of space. The signals were primitive, electromagnetic waves carrying entertainment broadcasts and communication data. The scout commander, Viceroy Talanash, reviewed the findings with the same interest one might show for insects building a nest. The blue-green world orbited an unremarkable yellow star. Its inhabitants had barely achieved nuclear fission. Their spacecraft were chemical-powered death traps, and they hadn't even colonized their own moon properly. The report filed to the Kalrathi High Council was brief and dismissive. Species designation: 4,781, locally called humans, posed no threat and offered no value beyond their planet's resources. The Council approved resource extraction to begin in the outer system, away from the primitives' detection capabilities. Commander Maria Rodriguez stood in the observation deck of Ceres Station, watching the stars through reinforced transparent aluminum. She had been stationed in the asteroid belt for 3 years, overseeing mining operations that supplied Earth's growing space infrastructure. The work was routine, even boring at times, but she believed in humanity's future among the stars. That belief was about to be tested in ways she never imagined. The first sign something was wrong came from Europa. The research station there reported unusual seismic activity near the subsurface ocean. Then, communication cut out entirely. Within hours, similar reports came from Ganymede and Callisto. By the time Earth's deep space monitoring stations detected the alien ships, 3 human outposts had gone dark. The images sent back by a lone reconnaissance drone changed everything. Massive crystalline structures had attached themselves to Europa's surface, drilling through kilometers of ice with technology humanity couldn't begin to understand. The ships themselves defied conventional design, looking more like geometric art pieces than vessels, all sharp angles and glowing edges that seemed to bend light around them. President Chun Wei called an emergency session of the United Earth Council. Representatives from every nation participated virtually, their faces grave as they reviewed the evidence. Humanity's first contact with alien life wasn't a peaceful greeting or a cultural exchange. It was theft on a planetary scale. The decision to respond came surprisingly quickly. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting among itself, but faced with an external threat, old divisions suddenly seemed petty. Within 48 hours, every military asset Earth possessed was being mobilized. The message they would send was simple but clear. Those moons belonged to humanity. Admiral James Thompson led the hastily assembled fleet from the bridge of humanity's newest warship, the U.S. Perseverance. 23 vessels in total, everything from repurposed cargo, haulers to prototype combat frigates, moved in formation toward Jupiter. It wasn't much against the alien technology they had witnessed, but it was everything humanity could muster. The Kalrathi noticed the approaching human fleet with the same concern one might feel watching ants march toward their picnic. Viceroy Talanash, commanding the resource extraction operation, ordered a single escort vessel to intercept. The Radiant Claw was a destroyer-class ship that had never lost an engagement in 2,000 years of service. Its plasma weapons could vaporize asteroids, and its shields had weathered solar flares without strain. First contact between the species occurred 17 million kilometers from Jupiter. Admiral Thompson opened communication channels on every frequency broadcasting in mathematics, binary, and a dozen Earth languages. The message was a request for dialogue, for understanding, for the aliens to withdraw from human territory peacefully. The Kalarathi response came in perfect English, having decoded human languages from intercepted broadcasts. Viceroy Talanash appeared on screen, his elongated head crowned with crystalline growths that pulsed with inner light. His 6 eyes, arranged in pairs, looked at Thompson with what could only be described as condescension. Lesser species, the translation came through clearly, though the alien's mouth movements didn't match the words. You will withdraw immediately. Interference with Kalarathi operations carries the penalty of extinction. This is your only warning. Thompson's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. This is our star system. Those are our moons. We're willing to discuss peaceful coexistence, but you need to cease operations and negotiate. The screen went dark. Seconds later, the Radiant Claw opened fire. A beam of superheated plasma lanced across space, striking the cargo vessel Mumbai that had been converted into a missile platform. The ship's hull vaporized instantly, taking all 60 souls aboard with it. The war had begun, though the Kalarathi didn't consider it a war. To them, it was pest control. What happened next would be studied by military historians across the galaxy for millennia. The human fleet didn't retreat or panic. Instead, they accelerated toward the enemy vessel in a seemingly suicidal charge. The Perseverance launched every missile in its arsenal, not at the Radiant Claw, but at the space around it, creating a cloud of debris and electromagnetic interference. Lieutenant Sarah Park, commanding the smallest vessel in the fleet, a modified racing yacht called Crazy Horse, did something no Kalarathi commander would have predicted. She redirected all power from life support to engines and aimed her ship directly at the Radiant Claw's shield generator. The yacht was too small and moving too fast for the destroyer's targeting systems to lock on through the interference. The impact was relatively minor by stellar combat standards. The yacht crumpled against the shields like paper against steel. But Park had loaded her vessel with mining charges, and the detonation at point-blank range caused a microsecond fluctuation in the shield matrix. That was all the opening humanity needed. The Perseverance's railguns, primitive by galactic standards but effective at close range, poured tungsten rounds through the gap. The Radiant Claw's beautiful crystalline hull shattered like glass under the barrage. The ship that had never known defeat was reduced to glittering fragments in less than 3 minutes. Viceroy Talanash watched the destruction of the Radiant Claw from his command ship orbiting Europa. For the first time in his long life, he felt something approaching concern. The humans had sacrificed one of their own vessels to destroy a superior opponent. They fought without regard for their own survival, something the Kalarathi had never encountered in their conquered subjects. The Viceroy ordered the immediate cessation of mining operations and the recall of all vessels to defensive positions. He would await reinforcements from the home fleet. The humans had won a single engagement through desperate tactics and luck. When the full might of the Kalarathi Empire arrived, this primitive species would learn why thousands of worlds had submitted to their rule. But humanity wasn't waiting. Back on Earth, something remarkable was happening. Every factory, every shipyard, every laboratory was being converted to military production. Scientists who had competed for grants now shared research freely. Nations that had guarded military secrets now opened their arsenals to common defense. In the face of annihilation, humanity did what it did best: adapt, survive, and prepare to fight with everything they had. Asterisk. When Titans fall 6 weeks after the destruction of the Radiant Claw, the Kalarathi Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 vessels emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls creating a constellation of artificial stars against the cosmic black. Grand Admiral Korthik commanded from the flagship Eternal Dominion, a vessel larger than most human cities, armed with weapons that could crack moons. The humans had not been idle. In those 6 weeks, Earth's industrial output exceeded the previous decade combined. Every piece of metal that could be salvaged was repurposed. Civilian spacecraft were armed with improvised weapons. Nuclear weapons, banned from space by human treaties, were hastily mounted on anything that could carry them. Most remarkably, humanity had reverse-engineered fragments of Kalrathi technology recovered from the destroyed Radiant Claw Dr. Yuki. Tanaka led the team that made the crucial discovery. The Kalrathi shields operated on harmonic frequencies, creating layers of protective energy that resonated at specific wavelengths. By analyzing the debris, her team found that certain frequency combinations could cause destructive interference in the shield matrix. It wasn't a complete solution, but it gave humanity a fighting chance. Grand Admiral Korthik transmitted his demands to Earth with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. The terms were simple: complete surrender, the dismantling of all human military assets, and acceptance of Kalrathi rule. In exchange, humanity would be allowed to survive as a servitor species. Their planet harvested for resources that their population maintained for labor. The response came not from Earth's governments, but from a unified broadcast signed by every nation, every space station, and every human settlement from Mars to the asteroid belt. It was brief. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. Come and take it. Korthik's reaction was recorded by his subordinates as the first time a Grand Admiral had laughed in 3 centuries. These primitives, with their chemical rockets and projectile weapons, thought they could stand against the Empire that had conquered star systems. He ordered the fleet to advance, planning to make an example of Earth that would be remembered across the galaxy. The battle began near Saturn. Humanity had chosen the battlefield carefully, using the planet's rings as cover and its many moons as staging grounds. The first wave of Kalrathi ships entered the system expecting token resistance. Instead, they flew into a carefully orchestrated trap. Hidden among the ice and rock of Saturn's rings were hundreds of automated drones, each carrying a nuclear warhead modified with Dr. Tanaka's frequency disruptors. As the alien ships passed, the drones activated simultaneously, creating a storm of electromagnetic pulses that caused the Kalrathi shields to flicker and fail momentarily. Captain Benjamin O'Coy, commanding the hastily constructed battleship Africa Rising, gave the order that would echo through human military history. All ships, fire everything. The human fleet, hidden behind Saturn's moons, emerged with every weapon blazing. Missiles, railgun rounds, and even repurposed mining lasers struck the momentarily vulnerable Kalrathi vessels. The superior alien ships recovered quickly, their shields snapping back into place, their weapons vaporizing human vessels with terrible efficiency. But for every human ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Cargo haulers packed with explosives rammed into enemy formations. Single-pilot fighters made suicide runs at command bridges. The humans fought with a desperation and fury that defied all military logic. What the Kalrathi hadn't understood was that they weren't fighting a military. They were fighting a species. Every human who could hold a weapon or pilot a ship had volunteered. Teachers, doctors, engineers, farmers, all united by a single purpose: survival. The turning point came from an unexpected source. During the battle, a small exploration vessel called the Carl Sagan, crewed entirely by scientists, managed to board a damaged Kalrathi frigate. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenobiologist who had dreamed of peaceful first contact her entire life, found herself interfacing with the alien computer systems. What she discovered changed everything. The Calrethi Empire's subject species weren't willing participants. They were enslaved, their world stripped of resources, their populations controlled through fear and technology. But hidden in the code were fragments of resistance, digital whispers from a dozen conquered species, hoping someone would find them. Vasquez broadcast her findings on every frequency, in every language the translator could manage. The message spread through both fleets and beyond, reaching Calrathi subjects who had never dared to hope for freedom. On 17 different worlds, rebellions that had been suppressed for millennia suddenly reignited. Grand Admiral Korthik found himself fighting not just the humans at Saturn, but receiving reports of uprisings across the Empire. The Melody used their songs to shatter Calrathi control crystals. The Bracken emerged from hiding with weapons they had concealed for generations. The Zephans turned their technological expertise against their oppressors. In desperation, Korthik ordered the planet killer weapon Worldender to target Earth directly. The massive vessel began charging its primary weapon, a beam capable of cracking a planet's crust and rendering it uninhabitable. It would take 10 minutes to charge, 10 minutes during which it would be vulnerable. Every human who could still fight converged on the Worldender. Admiral Thompson, his ship badly damaged, set a collision course. "This is for the Mumbai," he transmitted as the Perseverance struck the weapon's focusing array. The explosion didn't destroy the Worldender, but it damaged the targeting system. A young pilot named Marcus Chun, flying a fighter so damaged it shouldn't have been able to maintain life support, managed to slip through the chaos. With his last missile, he struck the Worldender's power core just as it was preparing to fire. The resulting explosion was visible from Earth's surface, a new star burning briefly in the daylight sky. The death of the Worldender broke the Calrathi fleet's resolve. For the first time in their empire's history, they began to retreat. But humanity wasn't done. As the alien ships attempted to flee to hyperspace, they found their paths blocked by something unprecedented, a coalition fleet. The species that Calrathi had conquered hadn't just rebelled. They had come to humanity's aid. Melody song ships, Bracken war vessels, and Zephan technical craft emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Calrathi fleet. The oppressed had become the liberators. Grand Admiral Korthik's final transmission was received by every species in the Alliance. Sitting in his damaged command throne, his crystalline crown cracked and dim, he spoke words no Calrathi had ever uttered. We ... surrender. The aftermath would reshape the galaxy. The Calrathi Empire collapsed within a year, its subject species reclaiming their worlds and their freedom. Humanity, despite having no experience with galactic politics, found itself at the center of a new alliance built not on conquest, but on mutual defense and cooperation. Earth's first embassy on an alien world was established on the Melody homeworld, in a building that harmonized with their architecture of sound. The first human graduate from the Zephan Technical Institute would go on to develop the hyperdrive technology that made humanity a true spacefaring species. The Bracken warriors, who had once fought against the Calrathi alone, found in humanity kindred spirits who understood that sometimes fighting was the only path to peace. As for the Calrathi, they were not destroyed or enslaved. In what many species considered foolish mercy, humanity insisted on their rehabilitation rather than revenge. It would take generations, but eventually, even the former conquerors would find a place in the new galactic order, standing on the observation deck of the newly constructed United Species Station. Admiral Rodriguez, promoted after her actions at Europa, looked out at the stars. They no longer seemed cold and distant. Each point of light might harbor life, potential friends or foes, but humanity was ready for either. The lesson spread across the galaxy, whispered in 100 languages. You should have left the humans alone. Not because they were powerful, but because when threatened, They would sacrifice everything for freedom, and in doing so, inspire others to do the same. The Kalarathi had wanted war with what they thought was a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, a species that refused to accept defeat and had the audacity to win against impossible odds. Asterisk.